Right, so where do we begin? Well, there's two reasons for me wanting to put this video together. The first one is to just say a huge thank you to everyone for all the positivity and kind comments we've had over the last week or so regarding the rebrand. You know, it's a situation that we never thought we'd find ourselves in. So to have all of your support throughout that has just been incredible. Like it really does mean the world to us, because obviously we've been apprehensive about it. You know, we're changing something that people have got to know and love. So we knew there was going to be a lot of confusion, a lot of people asking questions why. And so the second reason for me putting this video together was just to go into a bit more background about the brand, really where it started, and just to explain a little bit more about the rebrand and sort of how we've ended up where we are today. So in order to do that, we basically need to go right back to the very beginning, to where the brand as it was back then started. I suppose the most important thing to remember throughout all of this was that On the Beaten Track was never meant to be a brand in the first place. You know, it purely started out as a personal blog for myself on Instagram. You know, I've been an angler for years, I've been a graphic designer for years, and it started to get more into my photography. So it was purely somewhere to house that photography really, and later on I started experimenting with video. So it was just purely somewhere to house all that content and basically show people what I was doing in my own angling. Naturally, being a designer, it had to look good, it had to have some form of identity, and that's where On the Beaten Track started. So the name basically came from, there's a term off the beaten track which is thrown around a lot in fishing, which it talks about, you know, fishing or off the radar lakes and stuff like that. That wasn't what I was doing. I was fishing day ticket lakes, which thousands of people have got access to, so I am quite literally walking a beaten track. So that's where the name came from. So there was other names, but the concept itself was based around a journey. So that's why the crest has a strong reference to a compass, and also why OTBT can be read the same way no matter which way you read it around the crest. The idea being that carp fishing is a journey, you know, not only in a literal sense but also in a mental sense as well. You know, you're chasing these myths and legends, you're trying all different rigs and baits, nothing's working, and quite often you end up right back where you started, going back to your old trusted tactics, and they start working again. So that was where it came from. It's the idea of this journey which takes you right back to the beginning, to where you first started. Obviously, as things progressed, I started to experiment a bit more with the visual style of the brand. I started experimenting with video more, and then I literally just had the idea to create a little range of merchandise, never ever knowing the response that it would actually get. I started that death rig design. I've always loved sugar skulls and just wanted to create one for myself and sort of marry my design style with my passion, which was angling, and that came together in the form of the death rig. And I remember I've been working on it for months, and I had it sat there on my Mac, and I kept looking at it and was thinking, is this too out there? You know, it was so different from everything else that was in the industry at the time. And I just had no idea how it was going to be received. I think it was going to be one of those things that people either love it or they'd hate it and it completely flop. I thought there's only one way to find out, so I've got a sure run of merchandise done. And I remember posting the first teaser shots of the mugs, and it just went insane. I couldn't believe the reaction it was getting just on Instagram before we'd even done anything with it. And then I remember when that first run of mugs arrived, I think we did 288 mugs, and when they went on sale they all sold out within half an hour, and I couldn't believe that. You know, I thought, oh, it's got to be a fluke, there's probably just a couple of hundred people waiting for them, that'll be it, you know, it'll fizzle out after that sort of thing. And so I thought, I'll get another run done, just see what happens. Exactly the same thing happened. So I was just completely blown away by it, because I really was not expecting that reaction at all. And then it sort of all spiraled from there. You know, people actually started getting really angry that they were selling out because they couldn't get their hands on them, and the truth was, I just could not keep up with demand at all. I think people honestly thought I was maybe ordering 10 or 20 mugs at a time, but I wasn't. I was literally, they'd sell out that quick, and then I'd spend the next few days trying frantically to get them all packed up and get them off to the post office before I had to go back to work, because at the time I was working a full-time job alongside. And sort of over the course of 18 months, the sort of product range grew. Started doing a couple more t-shirts and the hoodies, and it just spiraled, and it got to that point where I just couldn't handle it anymore. Myself and my girlfriend were living in a little 2-bedroom terrace. We were running the whole business, as it had now turned into, out of the back bedroom of that little house. You had boxes piled to the ceiling. I had stock being stored in my parents' house, constantly running backwards and forwards to pick stock up. I had Sarah, my girlfriend, and my mum and dad running to the post office to take everything for me. And it just spiraled. It just reached the point where it just plateaued, because I physically didn't have the time or the space to push the brand any further. It just reached a stalemate, basically. We didn't have any more space, so we couldn't order any more stock, and it just reached a stalemate. And it was at that point, last April, when my good friend Dave Marvel, who a lot of you will know as the owner of Blakemere Fishery, he approached me about getting involved in the business now, and it just sort of all came at the perfect time. I'm not business minded at all. I do all the creative things, all the colouring, and that's my bag. The whole business side of it, I've got very little knowledge of, but obviously Dave's been in that industry for years. He used to supply all home and giftware, that sort of thing. So he's got all the business knowledge, which I needed. Basically just like the perfect match. So obviously it just came at the right time. Dave was looking for another business to get involved with. We had a chat, and it just all seemed right. It was just all perfect timing. So I actually left my job then in the October of last year, because it just reached that point. It demanded my full attention. I just couldn't be handling evenings and weekends anymore. It needed my full attention. And then Dave coming on board very quickly fast forwarded the brand probably a few years ahead of its time. So in that first year of Dave coming on board, we were able to do 3 shows. We did Zwalla, which was the first show we've ever done, which was just incredible. To have your first show in a different country, it was just amazing. That was a whole experience in itself. Then we did NAS and the big one, and everything was just sort of going in the right direction. All we were thinking of is just keeping the momentum going. We were loving what we were doing, and we just wanted to keep going in the same manner. So then it got to the point where the business had reached the stage where we had to seriously think about getting the name and the identity trademarked. So myself and Dave sat down to sort of discuss where the business was going and things, and it quickly turned to the name. On the beaten track, for a blog it worked, but for a brand it just didn't. It was too long-winded and it just wasn't memorable enough, and that was proved to us time and time again. People forever calling us Off the Beaten Track or OTB. It just didn't work as a brand name. So we were talking about, do we change the name? Because it's the bar test, as we were calling it. If someone asks you what your brand is called in a loud bar, would they understand it without you needing to repeat it? And they just wouldn't. Even when people ask you like, what's your brand called, so On the Beaten Track, you can see that sort of confused look in their eyes. It just didn't really work as a brand name. Most brand names are short and succinct, and you can understand them straight away. So it's just too long-winded. But then the other side of that argument was, everything we were doing was working, so it was almost like there was no real need, I don't suppose, to change something. It was almost like trying to fix something that wasn't broken. The identity of the brand had gained a lot of recognition. It was sort of like, why, should we bother changing it at all? So in the end, after a lot of discussion, we said we'll keep it as it is. We'll keep it as On the Beaten Track, but we do need to get a trademark to secure ourselves long term. So obviously for anybody who's done that process, you'll know how it works, but essentially you submit your application to the Intellectual Property Office, and then they basically do their research and see if there's any other brands with similar trademarks. And unfortunately, the IPO came back to us and we found 2 other brands with similar trademarks. But then obviously we've got to that point, we had to get it trademarked anyway, so we carried on with the whole process. So it was about 2 months into that we heard back, but unfortunately both of those brands had opposed our application. So it's then a case of basically trying to work an agreement with those 2 other brands. Now, I don't want to go too much into the legal side of it, because to be perfectly honest, we've all been sick of it the last few months. There's just so much negative energy surrounding that whole process that I don't want to go into too much detail on that. But essentially, we came to an agreement with one of the brands. They were fine to carry on doing everything as we were. The other brand just flat out refused anything we were suggesting, would not let us keep anything. And we were just back and forward with solicitors for months. Now, obviously, there's so much negative energy surrounding that whole process, all the costs that are obviously involved with it, and just there's so much like wasted time in a sense, because it's just so frustrating. All you want to do is just carry on doing what you're doing. You know, it's almost like you've just got someone there telling you, oh no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that, and it just got to that point where we've been fighting it, and we sort of took a step back and said, you know, why are we actually fighting this? We've already discussed that On the Beaten Track doesn't actually work as a brand name, and yet we're trying to fight to get this through. So in the end, it just reached the point where we just had to back down and withdraw our application and rebrand. So obviously it's not a situation we ever want to find ourselves in or expected we would be in, but I just can't explain that situation. It's sort of like, I suppose the best way to describe it is, imagine you've got a child, and then that child's 4th birthday party, someone comes bursting in the door, pisses all over his birthday cake and says, right, you can't call him by that name anymore, got to change it. And then that situation is just, you can't imagine that child being called anything else, because it's been called that name for all its life. And it was exactly the same thing with the brand. You know, it was almost like starting from scratch, and we just could not get our heads around the fact that we were going to have to call it something else. So it took weeks and weeks. I mean, we wanted another 4-letter name which carried on that whole concept of the journey the same way that OTBT did, to be read the same way around the crest, because in quite an ironic way, this whole process has been a whole journey for us. You know, from where the brand started to where it is now, we've essentially come full circle and ended up right back at the very beginning again, and almost having to start from scratch. So we were adamant that we wanted to keep that concept. For anyone who's done it before, you'll know, but it's so difficult to try and find a name that isn't already trademarked in those categories that you need to trademark it in. It's not just a case of, you know, coming up with a name that you like and that's it, let's run with it. It's like, you know, we probably honestly had, must have been 400 names, and I'm really not exaggerating. We probably had a list of about 400 names that we've been batting about between us for weeks. And then we eventually narrowed it down to about 6 and obviously settled on KUMU. And we realised it's going to be a big change to everyone, because, you know, it's, like I said before, everyone has known it as one thing for so long, and then quite out of the blue, we've had to change it to something else. Brand name's quite a funny thing, really, when you actually think about it. It's like, when you think of all the major brands that are out there, Nike, Adidas, Vans, when you look at those purely based on the word itself, I imagine they've been in a very similar situation where, you know, when you first hear those words, it sounds very odd, but you don't bat an eyelid over it now, because they're such household names. You don't even think about what you're saying. You know the brand, and you know the word. It doesn't sound strange because you've known it to be that way for years. And I think that's where people don't tend to like change, because you've got to know something so well. Then when you then call it something else, it just sounds wrong. But believe us, like it will grow on you. It was the same for us when we first came up with the name. I must say, it just seems natural now, and it will do to you lot in time. I say you might feel a bit unsure about it at first, but believe us, it'll settle in and it'll just feel natural again very soon. So the most important thing to remember is that the brand itself essentially isn't changing. I am still going to be pushing the brand design wise, so you can still expect the same level of creativity and design as you always have. So that side of it isn't changing at all. We still intend to just push the brand as far as we can and just keep pushing like ourselves and like pushing myself as a designer. That's what keeps me motivated, keeps me moving forward, and what keeps the brand moving forward. So that sort of brings us up to date really. But in the meantime, whilst all these legal battles have been going on, we had to make sure that no matter what the outcome was, in the meantime we were working to make sure that we come out the other end of it, no matter what the outcome, in a much better position than we were beforehand. So in the April, myself and Dave took a trip out to China to visit some factories. So basically, up until this point, we've only ever done sort of t-shirts and hoodies, but we want to move into the bigger clothing items and basically be able to do whatever we want. And the only way to do that is to go to the factories and see firsthand what they can produce, check the quality, make sure it's up to the standard that we expect, and just see what they can do firsthand. Because people don't see what goes on behind the scenes. Over the last few years, we've wasted so much time with suppliers that we found online. You start the whole sampling process, they come in, they're nowhere near what they should be, completely wrong. We've had some where we just haven't even seen the sample at all. We paid a load of money out for samples and then you don't even get the samples in the end. So we've been stung a few times like that. And that's just how business works. No one sees that side of it, but for us sitting on the other side, we're going through that whole process, trying to just keep on going as best we possibly can. So we're out to China in April, which is an experience. Say I've never been to China before. It's just a complete culture shock, just a completely different world really. We were only there for a few days. So it was quite an intense trip, but we've now come back with some very good suppliers who can do exactly what we want and do whatever we want. So although you've seen the range that we will be launching shortly, we've also got some other things that we've been working on behind the scenes, which we will start showing you very soon. So again, that sort of harks back to the whole journey. The brand has literally taken us to the other side of the world and back. So for everyone asking what KUMU stands for, it stands for that journey and what it means to us. So it's nice now to have announced the name change and have all that positivity surrounding it. Everyone's loving the new range, and that really does mean everything to us. I've been working away behind the scenes on all of the new design work and stuff, so to have it so well received by yourselves is just amazing. It sort of just puts all that hard work over the last few months into perspective, and it keeps you going. We just feel really positive about the future now. We've got all our new suppliers to do whatever we want, and just really looking forward to everything that we've got coming up. So obviously we're doing all the trade shows again. We've got Swallow, NAS and the big one. We've got some new products coming out which we haven't shown you yet. Some still in the sampling process, some near enough there which we'll be able to start showing you shortly. So it's just really nice to be at the other end of it now and have a smile on our face again. So once again, just a huge thank you to everyone for all the positivity, all the comments, and we can't wait to take it on this new journey with us. So we'll just keep you posted over the next few months to tell you everything that we've got planned.